Hey everybody, it's Brett, and thank you for stopping by or returning to my channel. Today, I wanted to talk as we're coming to the end of Nonfiction November. I wanted to highlight six books, nonfiction books that I think are just fantastic that I've read this year that I want to share with all of you. Now, if you were following me, most of these are not going to be a surprise because I've talked about them before. But if you're just new to me, then all of these will be new. So let's talk about it. So before we get into the books, I wanted to talk really briefly on some adaptations that I've seen on television and in the movie theaters of books that I think are worth noting and really interesting. The first one is the film Conclave, which is based on the book by Robert Harris. This was fantastic. I saw it last week, and it stars Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, Isabella Rossellini, John Lithgow, and it is about electing the next pope and kind of the twists and turns and the mysteries that come up. It is really fantastic with an ending I never saw coming. Interestingly, I yesterday started the Stanley Tucci's new book, What I Ate in 1 Year. And the whole first part of the book is filming this movie and living in Italy. And so it kind of is a great little companion piece. The book is great. Beyond that, it's as good if you liked Stanley Tucci's first book or enjoyed his series, his television series. You'll love this, and it's really great. So that's the first. The second is this has been out. The second season just finished, and somehow I came late to the game, which is strange because I was waiting for this to come out and just never jumped when it first was released. And that is Minjin Lee's Pachinko, the adaptation of that book. It is breathtakingly beautiful. It's on Apple TV Plus, and if you don't have Apple TV Plus, I would even say, get a 1 month trial or something like that because you can probably get it for cheap and just binge it and then quit. Although Apple TV Plus has a lot of great shows, including My Show Shrinking, shameless plug, but it is fantastic. Beautiful adaptation. Every single episode is like a movie. The cinematography, the acting is fantastic. Most of the cast I've never even seen, so would highly recommend that. And the last one that I watched half of the first episode last night, and it's really good, is Interior Chinatown, based on the book by Charles Yu, who also adapted uh, the book for television as a series. Really wonderful cast. I never would have anticipated how they would have adapted this book, but it's kind of ingenious and really funny, really, really smart. So would highly recommend that as well. Okay, so on to the books. So I have six books to share with you today. These are all books that I read this year. Two of them are backlist, and the other four have been released this year. The first one, speaking of adaptions, I read this, I'd had the book forever, but what really prompted me to finally pick it up was when it was on the New York Times 100 Best Books of the Last Century. That kind of pushed it over the edge for me. That and the fact that I knew that it had been adapted to be a series, and I wanted to read it before the series came out. Well, the series is now out. It is on FX or Hulu. It is fantastic, but the book is as well. It is called Say Nothing, a true story of murder and memory in Northern Ireland by Patrick Radden Keefe. Patrick Radden Keefe, some of you may know because he wrote this incredible book called Empire of Pain, which is about the Sacklers and the opioid epidemic that has stricken America. This he wrote before that, and it is about the origins of the IRA and the troubles in Ireland, which the book starts with a mother of 9 children being taken from her home, and that kind of propels the story. But it's not clearly just about that. It's really the players and the people that were integral into the beginnings of the IRA and what has happened. really, really, really fantastic piece of investigative journalism. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away, but I will also add, if you read the book, be sure to check out the adaptation as well because it's exceptional and again, great cast. Okay, next, Get the Picture by Bianca Bosker. This, if you told me earlier in the year that I was going to read a book about art and artists and absolutely love it and find it hysterically funny, I would have said you were crazy. But here we are. So, Bianca Bosker is a journalist who her first book was called Cork Dork, which was her kind of foray into the world of wine. She immerses herself in her world much like a method actor would do into a role. And for this, she descends into the art world. It is so good, you guys. First of all, again, nonfiction. Truth is stranger than fiction. The people that she comes across and that she works with and meets are beyond colorful and memorable, from artists and gallery owners and art collectors. There is a sequence in here with a performance artist who is beginning to get into OnlyFans. I don't want to say too much, but I will tell you that Bianca Bosker is brave in ways I cannot even imagine and puts herself into situations that are so crazy. Um, it's also, though, a really interesting examination of art and the art world and who are the arbiters of what gets decided in terms of what should be looked at as art and what should be considered of value and who gets excluded from that world. It's really, really fantastic, really entertaining. I found myself as I was reading it, tabbing so much of it and then looking up all these people that she was talking about because they all exist, especially these, certainly these artists, but these gallery owners and some of these collectors. So it's really a great book, and it would be a fantastic gift for someone as well. Not that any of these wouldn't, but this one in particular, it's great. There's always this year on Basketball and Ascension by Hanif Abdrabkib. I think that Hanif is a gift to all of us. A few years ago, he wrote a book called A Little Devil in America, which is fantastic. It's a series of essays about art and artists. And in this new book, he uses basketball as kind of the springboard to get into the subjects of his essays. You don't have to be a basketball player to appreciate it. I think that would give you an extra edge. I certainly am not a basketball person, but and so some of this stuff was a little lost on me. But again, those reflections on basketball more lead you to a deeper and heartfelt discussion about something else that he's getting at, whether it's race or relationships or racism or survival. Uh, he is first and foremost a poet, and it is evident in everything he does and the way he writes. I would also recommend listening to him on audio, whether it's this book or one of his other ones. I find I like to listen to him and read along. He has an incredible voice. The way that he speaks and the way that he phrases his sentences, uh, there's just like nobody else. And so for me, every time he publishes a book, it's like a celebration. I can't speak more highly about this. I think he's incredible. I can't say that I liked this more than A Little Devil in America. I liked that a little bit more, but still, it's just golden. So speaking of golden, this next author has been around. This is another backlist title. I've been really lucky this year to go through his whole canon of work, which right now there's just three books. This is his second book, and it is nonfiction, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. But it's Alexander Chi. His first book, Edinburgh, it completely blew me away. First of all, the writing is bar none. It's so beautiful and so eloquent and incredible. I'm literally at a loss for words when I speak about it. It's an incredible coming of age story that reminded me a little bit of Hanya Yanagihara's A Little Life, but not quite that devastating. Uh, that was next level, but there were certain elements of it that reminded me of that. You can tell that I clearly loved it. For those of you who are listening, I'm this book. Maybe you can hear this sound of me running my fingers over the tabs. I just thought this thing was so extraordinary. A lot of these essays deal with identity, and for him, it's being gay and being Korean, finding your place in the world, especially finding your place as an artist and finding his way as a writer. Some of the genesis of what becomes the novel Edinburgh is in this book. It is, he to me is one of my favorite writers. He will always be a go-to for me. He is truly, truly, truly special. And I thought this was just extraordinary. So get it. So get it. All right. Next up is Seen Through, a Chronicle of Sex, Drugs, and Opera by Ricky Ian Gordon. This was a total surprise to me. I didn't know really anything about Ricky Ian Gordon. I was intrigued by the cover, quite frankly. All I knew is he wrote opera and musical theater, and that he had some sort of relationship with Stephen Sondheim, which I didn't know the extent about. So I was curious. Well, I was completely floored by this thing. Ricky Ian Gordon is just brilliant. And it, to me, is such an incredible example of an artist at work and how he works. The way that he describes music, the way that he describes how he comprehends music and how it affects him is so beautiful and interesting. There's a sequence in here when he talks about Joni Mitchell and what she means to him that is such an incredible tribute. And of course, he talks about Stephen Sondheim later, which is its own interesting thing. But the very first part of the book is all about growing up in his childhood. And then going into adulthood, it's also a lot about him as a person living and loving through the AIDS epidemic and that kind of effect and what that did to him, but also just getting to have the privilege of reading about someone and how they create something as amazing as music. It's really, really, really special. And I found myself not familiar with any of his stuff. So I took out my Spotify, and as I was going through and he was talking about specific pieces or a specific singer, I would pull it up and listen to it, which was great. It all became like this multimedia experience. So if you want a really wonderful book that explores the creative mind of someone in the musical theater and opera world, absolutely get this book. Fantastic. All right. And then the final book that I want to discuss, again, total surprise, and one of my favorite covers and titles of the year is Man Boobs, a memoir of musicals, visas, hope, and cake by Kamel Ajazuddin. I was lucky enough when I was doing the Gays Reading podcast to have sat down with Kamel, and because after reading his book, I loved him so much that I wanted to talk to him. And I think that's always the sign of a great book, is when you go through something and you feel like you've connected with the person and you want nothing more than to connect with them a little more. And he's so wonderful and so lovely and just bright and has such a great sense of humor. This is his story about being a young Pakistani gay man who comes to America and is wanting to get his green card, studies in America, but it's about living between two cultures. It's about um, sexuality, but it's also about his weight and wanting to lose weight and also always being overweight. And so, how he dealt with that. It is uproariously funny. I had a galley before, which if I had it now, I would show you. I had marked so many passages because I would find myself laughing so much. I was reading this out loud to my husband in the car at times because I was like, you have to hear this. I'm sure I was driving him crazy, but he has such an incredible sense of humor. And it really is a delight. So read this, baby. That's it. Six really wonderful books, nonfiction choices for you for Nonfiction November and beyond. All of these are compelling. All of these are incredibly easy to get into for any of you who say, well, I don't really like nonfiction because I can't get into it. I promise you, you're not going to have that problem here. Have a great rest of your week. For those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will see you all next week.